Okay, now let's talk about the anatomy of the kidney. We need to understand the anatomy of the kidney in order to understand what the kidney actually does. Okay, so there are three regions of the kidney. So the outer layer is called the renal cortex. They're saying it's granulated. Okay, that's the outer layer. Then the renal medulla is what's in the middle, and they have these little triangle-shaped pieces in them that are called the renal pyramids. And then we also have the renal pelvis. So the renal pelvis is where the urine is going to flow down into. So they're calling it a central cavity that's continuous with the ureter. Okay, so here's some pictures so you can see what it is. Okay, so they say it's about 180 grams, so they're shaped like kidney beans. Okay, that's where kidney beans got the name. Here's the renal artery coming in, the renal vein that'll be leaving. Here's the ureter. Okay, so this outside layer, that's the renal cortex. And then this inner part, these little triangles, okay, those are called the renal pyramids. And then this whole region here is called the renal medulla. Okay, the blood vessels are, you can see that there's lots and lots of blood vessels in the kidneys because the kidneys' job is to filter the blood, okay, to remove the toxins. So there's got to be tons of blood vessels going through them. And in anatomy, I make them learn all the names of the blood vessels. Okay, now, if we look over here, okay, here's the pyramids. Okay, here's the cortex. And then this whole middle part is the medulla. So remember that the middle is the medulla, so they both start with the M. Okay, now the renal pelvis is the space in here. So what's going to happen is we're going to make urine and it's going to flow this way. It's going to come down into the renal pelvis and out the ureters. Okay, so if you look at this, okay, so here's the renal pelvis, part of it. Okay, here's the pyramid. Okay, and then these little things, these are called the nephrons. Okay, and the nephrons are where the urine's actually made. So blood is going to come in through this little capillary. It's going to get filtered, and then the urine is going to flow. Okay, so here's another one. The urine's going to flow down and into these collecting ducts and into the renal pelvis. Okay, now if you look here, this is a cadaver kidney. Okay, so here's the pyramids. Okay, there's the cortex. Here's the renal pelvis, and then the ureter. Okay, now nephrons. So nephrons are they're microscopic, but they're what does all the work. So it's actually where the urine is formed. Okay, so they're little, so I have, these are the guys that do the work of the kidney. So there's more than 1 million of these little blood vessels in the kidney. And it's just it's a system of tubes, really. Okay, so if we have an artery coming in, okay, so we have these little arteries, and then we have this little thing called an afferent arteriole. So the afferent arteriole goes into this little thing called the glomerulus, or glomerulus. So it's this little thing right here. And it's a modified capillary. Okay, so what's going to happen is when the blood comes in, it gets forced through a membrane. Okay, and it's almost like a water filter. So the blood gets forced through there, okay, and it gets filled. Some things are going to go through, and then some things are going to stay in the blood. So if they stay in the blood, they're going to leave this efferent arteriole. Oops, I'm going to sneeze. Hold on. Okay, they're going to go through this efferent arteriole and then to some other capillaries that go to the kidneys. If it goes through, okay, it gets collected in this capsule. Okay, and then it's going to go through these tubes. So the first tube is called the proximal convoluted tubule. And then we have this loop of the nephron. Okay, and then we have a distal convoluted tubule. Okay, and then we go to a collecting duct. Okay, so the blood, okay, can come out and it can go through capillaries that are wrapped around the tubes. And then it can also go around the capillaries that are around the ducts. Okay, this is kind of hard because I want to tell you everything and you don't have to know everything. Okay, but the idea is so that blood comes in, Okay, it goes through this glomerulus. The urine is filtered. Okay, so the urine ends up out here and it travels through this tube. Okay, and it's going to end up being excreted from your body. Blood can stay in here. Some things are going to stay in the blood and they're going to go this way. Okay, so here's the anatomy. So the list of terms. Okay, so the glomerulus is a knot of capillaries. Okay, it's inside this capsule, and it's a filtration membrane. So it's like a piece of filter paper or a coffee filter. And there's pores, there's holes in it, and they're going to produce this stuff it's not quite urine yet, so we call it filtrate. Okay, then the first part of the nephron after the glomerulus is this proximal convoluted tubule, which we just call it PCT. So it's got epithelial tissue, it has microvilli in it, and we're going to absorb things that that are found in the filtrate that we don't want to go into the urine. Okay, the loop of Henle. Okay, so this was the loop of Henle, or the nephron loop. Sorry, they used to call it the loop of Henle, but now they call it loop of the nephron or nephron loop. Okay, so it's U-shaped structure, and it has a descending limb that's going to let water out, and it's got an ascending limb that's going to let salt out. Okay, so it's going to really control water balance. Okay, then we have the distal convoluted tubule. Okay, so it's got epithelial cells in it and has mitochondria, so it's going to move molecules from the blood to the tube. Okay, and then we have collecting ducts. Okay, and the collecting ducts are where the urine is going to get collected. So we call it filtrate until it gets to the collecting ducts, and then we start to call it urine. Okay, so there's really 3 steps to this process. So the first step is called glomerular filtration. Okay, so here's the glomerulus. Okay, and then here's this thing called the glomerular capsule around it. In here, it's just space. Okay, so the blood comes in, okay, and it's going to we're going to filter things out. So what's going to end up in the filtrate are things like water, salt, some glucose, so it says nutrient molecules, so glucose, some amino acids, okay, and then waste. Okay, so we got salt, waste are uric acid, urea, creatinine, phosphate. Okay, so they're all going to end up in here. Okay, so we call all of this stuff the glomerular filtrate. Okay, so then what's going to happen is this filtrate is going to flow through the proximal convoluted tubule. Okay, so it's going to flow through here. Now, while it's in there, what's going to happen is tubular reabsorption. Okay, so reabsorption means that things are going to go from the tube back into the blood. Okay, so we're going to reabsorb it. So we've filtered out more than we want to end up in our urine. So we want to pick the glucose back up and the amino acids back up. They're too valuable for us to urinate out. Okay, because glucose, we work really, really hard to get glucose, and we don't want to pee it out. Okay, it'd be like peeing gold or flushing money away. Okay, so things that are going to get reabsorbed. Okay, so nutrient, so glucose, amino acids, salt molecules, they're reabsorbed. Okay, and we reabsorb a lot of water. So if you look at the numbers, we only urinate between like 1 to 2 liters a day, but when we are making this filtrate here, a man actually makes like 180 liters of filtrate a day. Okay, so we have to pick up the water. We got to put the water back into the blood. Okay, now the last part of it is tubular secretion. Okay, so tubular secretion just means that some things are going to be taken from the blood and put into the urine. So some things didn't make it through here. So we have to continue to take them out of the blood and put them into the urine. Okay. Okay, so maybe I should stop here.